Well, hi, thanks for talking to me. Nice to
I
talk to you.
appreciate
Sorry to
it.
see you
I
go,
appreciate
though.
you interviewing me. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. So
Sure. We have the same color shirt on. I just noticed that.
I love it. I love it. Does yours say Wood River Parks and Rec
No,
on it?
no, mine does not. I don't even know what it
Dang.
says. Love is something you
I might have to send you one. So the next time we do one, we're wearing matching shirts.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah. So originally, why did you decide to be on the show, try out for the show, other
you
than
know,
the money?
I mean, yeah, the money was a huge. I mean, that's life-changing money there. I've been a big fan of Big Brother. I've been a big fan of Survivor. My one friend, he sent me this saying, "Hey, this might be a show you might, start getting into," which was Deal or No Deal Island. Um, and the one thing I will say too, going back to my childhood, I watched Deal or No Deal growing up. I know a lot of people think I'm creepy because I knew like two of the girls. But people don't know how I was raised. We grew up where I would come home from school and watch game shows till I went to bed. I grew up with a lot of the classics like Deal or No Deal, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, One versus 100, Minute to Win It, Price is Right, all that kind of stuff. Um, so to be able to apply for a show and be able to get on a show that combined, two of my favorite things to watch on TV, which is a game show and reality TV, I had to be a part of it. And I'm very, very glad. I got eliminated last night, but I wouldn't change his experience for the world. And I'm very, unfortunately, it wasn't me who won at the end, but I'm very, very happy for the person who did. And I
That's
wouldn't
cool.
change anything.
No, I was gonna say, I get that. I grew up watching game shows with my grandma, although
Yeah.
probably older ones than you did, but still game shows. So, saying that, since you like reality TV and that, are you going to at some point apply to be on other shows? Because I know a lot of times once you're on one, people tend to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah, I would love to hopefully be able to be on Big Brother or Survivor. I know everyone in my cast currently, they want to do Traders, which don't get me wrong, I'd do Traders in a heartbeat if they asked me. But the two shows that I want to do the most is Big Brother and Survivor. One, because I'm a big fan of it, and the second reason is because a lot of people thought that I was riding, David and Parvati's coattails at the end. And I want to show that I can play a very good game and that I can be as great of a player as both of them in a game where, I'm not being shadowed over them, if that makes sense. Or they're not, I'm not in their shadows.
No,
Because
that
I
makes
would play my own individual game. And, I don't think a lot of people just thought I was a pawn for them, which is ironic because, in my temple, the one I took out Storm, if I would have taken out CK, people would be saying the exact same thing about me being a pawn for Dr. Will. So I don't regret anything.
no, that was a big surprise, I think, to everybody when you took out Storms.
Yeah.
So, obviously you knew about poverty when she was on in the beginning, but what was your thoughts like when you found out about David? Because I don't think you knew he was on, did you? I
Yeah,
don't
so
think
I
that
didn't know
much
David was
Australian
on
Survivor.
Survivor. Looking back now, he dropped plenty of hints throughout the season. I probably should have guessed. At first he didn't say he liked Survivor. And then I mentioned something because one of my favorite Survivor players is Philip Shepard from Redemption Island, Boston Rob season. I think it's like 21 or something. And I said something about Philip Shepard, and David said, "Oh, I love that guy." And whenever David was talking about, from going from not watching Survivor, he's like, "Oh, I watched the beginning of Survivor."
But he knows it, yeah.
21 is one of the middle seasons. It's not even an early season, so that should have gave it off right there for me that he actually like paid attention to Survivor. And I should have picked up on the conversation he had with me about how do you think I do on Australian Survivor. I look at MG doing that, and I think it's the funniest thing in the world. That she was explaining it to him, and I don't remember that conversation with David. And I turn around and I have just as bad of a moment as MG did. So.
Oh, I get that.
Um,
Now, sorry, go
go
ahead. No, I was just gonna say now you've been on TV, and granted you haven't been off that long. I mean, it hasn't been on TV that long for us, I should say. But how has your life changed? Because now you're that guy that people have seen on TV.
For me, I kind of returned back to my small town. It didn't matter if I won the money or not. I told my boss before I left, it doesn't matter if I win, I'm coming back to work because I love my job. I personally think I have one of the coolest jobs in the world, working in Parks and Rec, being able to run programs, for kids and adults, just seeing the joy I put on people's faces. So, for me, coming back, I was gonna keep my job regardless. Rather I won the entire pot, rather I won $100. I was gonna keep my job. I would say things. A lot more people know who I am around here, which they knew who I was because I work in Parks and Rec, and a lot, I have a lot of kids, with parents and stuff like that, whose programs that I run. But for me, it was different in the sense of, they talk to me more maybe. But that's really it. So.
What were you most surprised overall the show when you got on there? Because obviously I'm sure it wasn't exactly like you expected, but so
Oh,
what
no,
surprised
so the
you?
one thing I was surprised about was how fast the game or how slow the game was. People are gonna say, I would do this, and they're sitting on their couch. I was like that too whenever I watched Survivor and Big Brother. I'm like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But when you're in the game, it's different. Like you actually do have something you're playing for. And not to mention, you don't have your phone out there. You don't have TV. And the one thing I will admit that I did bad, but I wouldn't change it because I'm happy with the outcome, getting sixth place. Was I was playing really hard. I was trying to play all sides. And as someone who grows up watching this, you want to play, you want to play the game as well as you can, but you don't realize how slow it is on that island when you don't have entertainment. And the only thing that was racing through my head constantly was game. That's the only thing that was going on in my head. It was, don't get me wrong, I love learning about, my fellow castmates and stuff like that. But whenever I could talk about game, that's the one thing I would always try to do. And then again, it goes back to me being a fan of the show, and trying, saying that, doing things that I wouldn't do if I was watching on TV and doing them on the island. So I think the craziest thing for me is realizing how slow the game is, and working around that.
Is there nothing then you would change? You'd do it all exactly the same?
No, the one thing I would change, the one biggest regret that I have, and again, don't get me wrong, I'm happy for the person who won. I'm happy, where I finished. But my ultimate downfall in the game was choosing David next. And like, it's not even choosing Letty. Like, people are like, I should have chosen Letty. It's like, no, I shouldn't have chosen Letty next. Letty would have been another terrible option. Not as bad as David. My next best option to choose, who I should have chosen, and I strongly believe I would be in the game now, was CK. Because if I would have chose CK, there was a total of 3 cases that guaranteed you safety, right? So if I choose one of them and CK chooses one, that means that there's only one case left, and David and Parvy are fighting for it. So
And somebody
that
else
means
would have taken him out. Yeah.
yes, yes, exactly. Like, I mean, and that's one of my strategies going in, and I'll ask you this, if you won the banker, the temple, who would you take out between me, Parvy, and David?
Definitely one of them. I think
You would
probably
have taken out
Parvati
one of
would
them.
have
So
too.
for me,
Yeah.
I was willing to work with them because they were bigger threats than me. Um, it's unfortunate, and again, it's my downfall in the game. Because I sat, as soon as I got to the hotel, I knew it was my downfall. I couldn't think right in the challenge because I was so ticked off at myself. Um, but my downfall was not choosing CK next. If I would have chose CK next, my strategy's still up there where there's a threat on the bench next to me. And Letty probably, assuming Letty plays, Letty would have taken David or Parvati out next. So my strategy was working. Unfortunately, I made one flaw decision in the game, which cost me the entire game, unfortunately. And I do believe strongly that if I didn't make that decision, I would be sitting in the finals if
So,
it
so
wasn't.
let me ask you this. Would you then not have gone quite all the way with them? Would you have at some point, if you had done it that way, gone against them?
Oh, I wanted to, my goal coming into this was to take out the physical threats, and I kind of thought people would have the same mindset as me. At least the people who were, my size, like CK, Satial in terms of strength and everything like that. I thought they would realize that the bigger threats are the ones that we need to take out. Um, but I don't think I was the only one that was gunning for physical threats in the game. I took out Storm because he was a physical threat. He was well liked by everyone. I hate to be, a camp killer. But I had to kill that, unfortunately. He always put a smile on my face, and he really was a good dude, and I genuinely mean that. But he was doing Jordan's strategy where he was floating his way to the end. He was winning a challenge. That's all it takes to win this game is not making enemies and winning a challenge at the end. But for me, I was honestly going to turn on Dave, and the relationship I had with David was genuine. But I wanted to turn on him in Final Five. I couldn't take him to Final Four, with the season last year. I just couldn't. Final Five was the best chance for me to go, because it's the same situation if I would have left Letty in the game. If I would have made a move, and it was, David out of the game or Parvy out. I mean, probably David. But if it was Letty in the game, it's the same situation. I need to get rid of Letty because she would kill in my opinion, Parvati, me, Philip, or CK at a challenge. So
I usually ask, did you find the mental or the physical challenging? But obviously, you seem to do pretty good with the mental. You enjoyed the strategizing. It sounds like a lot.
yeah, I mean that's what I love about Survivor and Big Brother the most. And unfortunately, Deal or No Deal Island, it is one of those more physical challenge games, where there's not mental challenges like Big Brother. I mean Survivor. I'd say they have a few in Survivor that you could consider, like the puzzles and stuff, I would consider mental. But they didn't have that, unfortunately, here for Deal or No Deal Island. I was hoping they would break out a slide puzzle. That's something I can win. Slide puzzle, jigsaw puzzle, memorizing something. That was up my alley there. Me swimming through quicksand clearly wasn't up my alley. Heights wasn't my alley. Um, you know, but
But you
yeah,
did it. You still
strategic
did
part
it.
of
You
it.
didn't back down. So that's
I didn't back down because my philosophy was, and don't get me wrong, I am absolutely terrified of heights. I'm not gonna look like a baby on national TV. I'm just not going to. Um, you know, if it wasn't, and I hate saying this, if it wasn't for CK grabbing my ring, I don't know if I could have done that challenge because she just put fire in me when she did that. When she took my ring, because, you know, the show shows us bickering all the time. But the domes were working together. Like if you were in the red dome, you were working with the red people. If you were in the yellow dome, you were working with the yellow people. And we can see that too because the blue dome had an alliance together. So CK did blindside me in the fact she chose my ring, and it just put so much anger in me that I was able to overlook the heights, and easily grab that ring.
kind
So
of.
hate to give CK props there, but I'll give her props for fueling my fire. I will do that.
What do you think was your best move out of the whole game?
Oh, I think my best move, and it doesn't show it either. I think my best move was, and the reason why is because I didn't have to face the banker. I kind of blackmailed Parvati in the extent to making Lachelle face the banker. Because Parvati and CK were closer in the game, and I told Parvati that if you put me up against the banker, I'm taking out CK because I felt like what they wanted me to do. And one clip shows like David the next morning, he's like, dude, like sometimes you gotta do what's best for mom's game. And I got so ticked off when he said that. It's like, I'm not doing your dirty work. It's like with Dr. Will, I'm not doing your dirty work of taking out CK. And when he said that, I was like, I'm definitely not taking out Letty now. Even though, like, in the end, I probably would have talked myself into taking out Letty because she was a physical threat. But I was just walking around camp saying, "Yep, CK, you're going if I'm playing the temple." And I do think that did have an aspect of Parvati's decision to not put me up against the banker, especially because I knew I was safe. Because one thing the show doesn't show too is that me and Lachelle actually made an agreement where we wouldn't take each other out. And for me, I think the biggest thing why I was upset is because I kept telling Parvati I was safe because I knew about the agreement. And I think she kind of underestimated my ability in the social aspect. Because don't get me wrong, like a lot of people, they didn't want to work with me. I burned a lot of bridges. But the one thing I will say about Lachelle is that she was very open-minded. She was very reasonable. And I felt like if I could talk to anybody and explain my side and why it's not best to take me out, it would have been her. And it ended up working. We just didn't see it in the edit, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say she said she would have taken out Letty if she had won, so
Yep,
you would have
yep.
been
And
good there.
another thing is that, CK told me throughout the game that Philip and Lachelle were going at it. So I told Lachelle, like, I'm not taking you out. I would probably take out either Philip or Letty. So
So who did you want to win? And I know you
uh
can't tell me who did win, but who did you want to win when you left?
no, I wanted David to win, just because, we did have that genuine bond of everything. So I wanted David to win the game.
Well, thank you for your time. We're out of time, but look forward to seeing you in the finale and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
on Big Brother or Survivor in the future, hopefully.
Hopefully. It was great talking to you.
You too. Have a good
Have a
rest
good
of
one.
your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.